Hey, everybody, Jeremy, National Fire Radio. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, he's already laughing at me. Today is a very, very special guest on the show. And it's my own father, Tom Donch, who, episode 400, Dad.
Thank you. Wonderful. That's historic. In my mind, it's historic.
Oh, I love it. I mean, we're probably over 700 episodes.
Wow.
But for this, we didn't start numbering them until long into it. And so there's that. But anyway, thank you for joining me. This is a real special treat for me.
Looking forward to it.
Well,
we've been talking about it for some time, and it came about.
Well, you're so ridiculous. Yeah. So I want to talk a lot about you, which you absolutely hate, right? Because I know that you don't like the attention on yourself by any means. But I've had a lot of fun with National Fire Radio over the last 7 years now. It's been. And today we're in the new studio, new offices that we opened not too long ago. And you've been instrumental in this from the very beginning and very supportive. That means the world to me. But you have this way about you that I absolutely adore. And what I mean by that is you're always looking out for everyone around you and never about yourself.
Well, that's what camaraderie is all about, in my opinion, is having friends and making sure that they're happy. And I hate to see the negativity that goes on, and I try like hell to try and quell it and make everybody happy. So if they're happy, I'm happy.
No, I know, but I'm not even talking about the firehouse, right? I'm talking about life in general, right? Like you had a very colorful past, a lot of fun stories that you've shared with me as we've gotten older. You used to get in a little bit of trouble here and there, which was a lot of fun, especially now in the storytelling aspect of it. But you're also an absolute hustler, and I mean that not in a bad way. I mean that in a really good way. You work for everything that you've had, and you worked very hard, and I've watched you build a family business that I had the honor to be a part of for quite some time. And I learned a lot of values and things from you, not just how to manage a business and how to get involved in your community. And I want to get into all that about how involved you were in our town while I was growing up, but also how you just treated people. And I know, when you and I worked together at Tri-State, it was one of those things where you and I would butt heads when I would get upset and frustrated with a client, and you would tell me they come first, we have to take care of them. And it was a constant reminder of the good in people. That's hard in a lot of ways. So many people are jaded in this world today. And you, my friend, you do a very good job on the outside. Probably on the inside, some of this stuff tears you up. But on the outside,
of course, absolutely.
On the outside, you are constantly looking at the good in people.
Yeah, it's been my way. My work ethic is to give people a lot more credit and sometimes than what they deserve.
Yeah.
And also to respect them. And regardless of their position, regardless of whether I'm in agreement with them or things like that, I give them the benefit of the doubt. I give a lot more than I want to take. So to me, that's important. It's just the way I've been. I don't know how I was brought up. My dad passed when I was young, and somehow I guess because my mom, we had to do things on our own and create ourselves, and somehow I came out of the shell. And I appreciate everything that I have, and I appreciate everything that you've done for the company. I mean, you were very instrumental in Tri-State Bearings and helping me get it going and so on. And you always had that drive, just like you do here at National Fire Radio. You have that drive, you have that ambition, you have that wanna do it and make things work. So,
but I learned
it's been a part of me.
I learned so much of that from you, and that's the whole point of this, right? And so, and that's why it's so special to have you on today. It's like I do that bridging the gap program, right? And you and I, right. I travel all over the country and I talk. And the first third of that program is talking about my upbringing. The influences that I had in my life, the family business, the opportunity to, buy the company, which we ended up not following through on. And I share a lot of that story because so much of it for me was taking for granted so much of what I was given over the years. And only as I got older did I come to realize, everything that was given to me were tools to be used and not to be squandered. And that comes from you. And part of that program, I talk about generational values. You're going to be 83 years old this year. Do you know that?
Yeah, that's a shock.
83.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't feel it. Don't think it. It's a number to me. When I look back and when I started in the fire service and went through politics and everything, 70-something years have passed, and I'm just wondering where they all went and why things have come about the way they have come about. And it's surprising to me sometimes when I look back.
Well, I think so much of it, honestly, I think so much of it is because of the good you've done. And I think that comes back around. I mean, you from an early age lost your father. You helped raise your my aunts and uncles, your brothers and sisters. You helped grandma out for quite a very long time. And yet you found your own way. And your generation, the silent generation, is known for putting their heads down and working hard. It's a very strong work ethic and being very protective of family and those that they love. And I talk about that in my Bridging the Gap program. And every time I bring you up and I say, this is exactly who my father is. This is a guy that has owned every single thing he's done. He doesn't make an excuse for anything. I've never heard you make an excuse about anything that's gone right or gone wrong. I've never heard you make any excuses. You own everything you do. I think that you're an absolute man of your word. And I think some of that gets lost today. I think a lot of people don't have those same values or appreciate that position. And as I'm getting older, 48, 4 kids, you know, I'm starting to really understand the importance of character and integrity and all of those things that you've demonstrated for so many years. And so it's just a real honor to be able to be your youngest and to grow up and for you to trust me today to do this, because you were like, what do you want to talk about? And I was like, I want to talk about anything and everything, because I can sit for hours and chat with you. But, you know, we don't work together as much as we used to. You know,
of course, yeah.
The family business,
Absolutely.
you know, the family business, 6 years ago now?
Yeah, going on 6.
We sold the family business, and it should be said that even at going on 83, you still work at least 1 or 2 days a week, if not more. And I tell you to slow down. And what do you tell me?
I have slowed down.
What do you tell me? I can't golf every day.
That's right. I couldn't golf every day. I would get bored with it, and I got to find something else to do. And I'll tell you, just being a consultant for the company, keep my mind active, keep my body going, and it gives me some drive. I've always had the drive and the ambition to do something. If I didn't like doing it, I wouldn't be doing it. But I enjoy it because I think it keeps me a young 83, and hope I'll stay a young 83 for a long time. And we'll see where it goes. But you know, I'd stay at it because it's just a nice hobby to have besides golf and besides going fishing or visiting with my friend up in the Adirondacks, who's been a longtime friend of mine, Sam. And so, you know, and the other friends we have when we go out to different places. So it's enjoyable. I like to keep busy. Everybody says I should slow down, I should retire. I can't do nothing. I just can't do nothing.
Well, I think you got to stay sharp. And that means physically and mentally challenging yourself daily.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think the firehouse helps. It gives me some work to do, you know, being treasurer, taking care of things on the payment side and all that sort of stuff. That's and then getting in to see the guys on a Monday night and just having some camaraderie together. And it relates back to when I first started when I was 16. I think it was 1958. And that's a long time ago. Hard to think about. But yeah, 16 and then 18, we became a full-time member, and Turner River was a great tool, and it was a great learning experience.
Connecticut.
And in Connecticut, in Stamford, Connecticut.
Right.
Yeah, it was an all-volunteer company, and we had 2 stations, but met a lot of young guys that got me into it. I don't know how I wound up getting into it. I think Bob Slocum, if I remember, he was in high school with me, and he said, you ought to join the fire department. I didn't know what that was all about. And that's how it started. And I think he was the one who pushed me, and a couple other guys told me, try it, see if you like it. And I like the camaraderie. I like the brotherhood. I like the activities. I like the enjoyment of making a call, helping people, and doing things like that. Not that I realized as much how much we were helping people when I was 17, 18, 19 years old. It was a lot different then. I think I was doing it for my own enjoyment at that time, and not realizing really what I was doing for our community and so on. So it was a great time.
What did the Turner River Fire Department in the 50s look like? You know what's really cool is a little while ago you got something in the mail from them, right? It was like wasn't there like a photo or a letter that came, and it was like acknowledging like years of service and on, and
they recognized all that. Yeah, that was phenomenal. I have that hanging up down the basement on the wall down there. Yeah,
those early days, though, right? I mean, how instrumental was that? I mean,
it was fun. I mean, we were big shots. We had open cabs. We drive in the wintertime in the rain in open cabs, and we'd jump on the back of the truck and hang on, put our boots and coat on while we're flying down the road. A couple of the guys would hold you on until you got your boots and coats on the back of the truck.
Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy. I mean, those were crazy times, and didn't think much of it because that's what you did back then. That's how you operated. We had the 35-foot 3-fly ladders that weighed a ton, and you had worked your butt off, but you did it because you wanted to and you enjoyed it. But it was a lot of good, with the stick shifts and the trucks and trying to get them up the hill. Some of the older trucks and things like that, the downshifts and double clutching and things you don't have today. People don't even understand what that is today. You got automatics. You get in the truck and it goes. All you have to do is start it and steer it. So those were fun times. I mean, we really enjoyed it, and we did a lot of things, and just like we did at Franklin Lakes Fire Department, the picnics we had. We were a member of the Big Five. There was 5 volunteer companies. We had softball, go to picnics and things like that. So there were times when we were growing up, and it was a lot of fun. So you think back about how much fun you had, but also how much work and how much danger you had, and you had to be careful. Sometimes I think at a younger age you didn't realize all that was in front of you. Fire shooting over your head, and you're trying to put it out before it flashes over. And we've had a lot of woods up in Stamford. We used to have a lot of brush fires. The old Indian tanks we'd carry on our backs and pump water to try and put the fires out and so on. Didn't have all this sophisticated equipment today where you can drive into the woods with a truck with water and a hose and so on. But those were the days.
Yeah, well, those were the days. I love that. What was the training like back then? Was there any training?
We did have drills, yes, and most of our guys, our chiefs and our captains and so on, they were pretty religious about it, and they did the basics. We had fire school. We used to go up to Willimantic, Connecticut, to the fire school up there by University of Connecticut.
Yeah.
We'd spend time up there at the fire school getting our different fire 1s and fire 2s and something comparable to what we have today. We did a lot of fire schooling, and every drill night, we would go out and do something, whether it was pumping or ladders or something like that. It's pretty much typical today. Practice what you're going to use so that you're prepared. And you know where the hose is. You know why you're going to pull that tool off. You know why you're going to do this and why you're going to do that. But, we didn't have all the hydraulics that you have today with for extrication and things like that. We never had all that type of equipment. So there were rescue companies that had manual hydraulic jacks
the
and
power,
things like
right?
that, porta-power and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But, we always drilled, and it was pretty religious. And, they had people come in from other companies to train us on different things that to be aware of and so on, about a car fire or perhaps a special building and why you have to be careful there, things like that, different types of structures, the loads and all that sort of stuff. So it's pretty much the same.
When did Uncle John join? Do you remember? Because he's younger. Uncle John's my
Yeah.
dad's younger brother, who ended up going into the career fire service later on in life in Stamford, Connecticut. But he joined Turner River, no?
Yes, he did. Yes, he was very active in Turner River, and he joined, I believe it was about 4 years after I did. I'm going to say around 63 or so.
Okay.
He joined, and that became a career for him.
Yeah.
He joined the Stamford paid department downtown Stamford, and he retired out of there, and now in Arizona,
Yep.
and with some of his buddies. That,
Did he retire as a lieutenant or a captain? Do you remember?
Lieutenant.
Lieutenant,
Yeah,
yeah.
he did retire as a lieutenant and
Yeah.
so on. Yeah.
So it's funny because I go up to Stamford quite often. I've gotten to know a lot of guys in that city, and they always talk about Uncle John, the guys that remember him. There's not many guys left.
No,
that,
I'm sure. I was
that
just going
remember
to say
him.
that. Yeah.
But there's a couple guys left, and what they always said was how fiercely protective he was of his guys. And he always fought for the union. He always fought for his guys. He always fought for what was right. And I guess Uncle John had a hell of a temper on him, too.
Oh, yeah, he did. And matter of fact, the last time he was up here in Connecticut, he went to a meeting in Stamford.
Did he really?
Even though he's retired,
Yeah.
because his pension was being affected.
Oh, okay.
So, and not only his, but all his buddies who
Right.
retired with him,
Right.
their pension was becoming effective, and their medical, I think it was more towards the medical end of things that were going to be affected. And he jumped right in, and he got into it, and
Not
got
afraid.
into the fray, and spoke his piece, and told him what he think. I don't know what the outcome was, that whatever happened.
Yeah.
I'd have to speak to him about it. But yeah, like you say, he was very fiercely protective, and he was I believe he was president of the union at one point, and he was negotiating for salaries and
Sure.
benefits and everything else. So that all stemmed from Turner River when he was with Turner River. And, Turner River was interesting because we had paid drivers during the day, but at night
Even back
it was
then.
all volunteer. Yeah, back then we had paid drivers. We had 3 paid drivers. And Woody was one of them. And John Beesman, and there's one other, Walt Spear. Those were our 3 paid drivers. Then after that came Burtis and some others. And now eventually what happened was Turner River was turned over to, it's still a volunteer company, but Stamford
Yeah, the
paid
city.
department
Yeah, the city.
now stocks their equipment in the firehouses so that they can respond up
Yeah.
there, and the volunteers assist them when needed, and so on. So
Yeah.
things have changed, and we're looking at change here too in Franklin Lake. Sooner or later, it's a town that's just not really conducive to producing volunteers, and we see it in all aspects of ambulance, fire, and not only our town, but a lot of other towns
Sure.
are struggling to get volunteers, and who knows where it's going to go. But down the road, we'll know sooner or later.
Yeah. So you found your way to New Jersey from Connecticut, right? So you lived
Right.
in Connecticut your whole life. Our whole family's from Connecticut. We're the only family that moved outside of Connecticut, right? I mean, I'm born and raised in New Jersey. So 74, you joined our department that you're still a member of, and that's
Right.
50 going on 52 years. This year you'll be a member there.
Right. Correct.
I love it. I want to talk about that a little bit because I grew up in a household of service, and from ever since I can remember, you were a councilman, you were mayor for many, many years. In fact, you were mayor during my teenage years of middle school and high school. So when I
Yeah.
did get in a little bit of trouble here and there, it was always, it's Tom's kid, get him home, blah blah blah, But it was always there was this always level of service at home. The importance of giving back to the community that has given so much to you, right? I mean, you came in,
Yeah.
you talked about, I asked you before we started recording, I go, do you remember when you joined the fire department, right?
Right.
And you said
right.
it was after their anniversary parade.
That's right. I can remember we got married. Barbara and I got married. Your mom and I got married in 1968, and we moved to New Jersey because I was working for a ball bearing company, and they had a territory in New Jersey that opened up, New Jersey, New York, Long Island, and I had just come back from a long trip to Dallas, to Chicago, to St. Louis, and I didn't like St. Louis, and so I called my boss one day and I said to Gene, the vice president of the company, I said, Gene, I don't like St. Louis. I want another job. He said, I don't have one for you. So I said, oh, okay, I quit. I'm coming home. So I drove the company car home, and I dropped it off at the factory and said goodbye to Gene and Paul Nowak. Paul, who was a great guy, great salesman,
Yeah.
and a lot of fun guy. And I learned a lot from him in sales and everything else. So I quit the job, and so I was home looking around for a job. And about a week later, Gene called me up and said, hey, Tom, would you want to work New Jersey, New York, and Long Island? I said, boy, that's perfect. We just fired the salesman. He wasn't doing the job in those areas, so we'd like you to take over and take that job. And I said, that's fantastic. So when we got married, I decided to move to New Jersey because most of my business was in New Jersey, and I didn't have to commute from Stamford to New Jersey every day back and forth on Long Island and New York City, et cetera. So that's how we wound up in New Jersey. As a matter of fact, one of my good customers, Tom Harrison, God rest his soul, he was purchasing agent at General Electric in Patterson.
Yeah.
And he became a real good friend, he and his wife, Marge. And he said, Tom, when you're ready to New Jersey, let me know, and I'll find you a place. So he found us a place in Ramsey. And we were in Ramsey for about 3 years in an apartment building until we were looking for a house. And he was very helpful in finding the place in Ramsey. But I never joined the Ramsey Fire Department because I think I was going to stay out of fire service because I was thinking about raising a family and becoming a dad and doing all those fatherly things. And then, lo and behold, when we had Chris, our first son, we decided to look for a new place, and we found a house in Franklin Lakes. And we were in Franklin Lakes in 71, and then one year there was 1974, there was a parade for the fire department. It was their 50th anniversary parade. And the parade marched right by our house on Colonial Road. And I saw all these guys, and they looked so happy. They were in their yellow and blue uniforms.
Remember that? Yeah.
I remember those,
Yeah.
yeah. And I was so good to see them, and there was a pretty big turnout. But unfortunately, there was nobody on the roads watching them hardly. There was very, very few people that came out. But then I started thinking about the fire department. And that's when I decided, well, let me go talk to them and see if maybe I can help out and join since I have some experience. And that's how I got involved in Franklin Lakes and becoming very active, or more active than probably what I should have been, and probably more than any father probably should have done, because a lot of those years after that, being on the fire, then I joined the council. I was fighting 287, which was coming through our town. I was trying to keep it out of the town. And I went to the council meetings. I was yelling at the council guys, you got to do a better job than what you're doing. You guys got your head in the sand, one thing or another.
Right.
And eventually, I guess what they said to me, well, if you think you can do any better, why don't you come up here and join us? And so I started thinking about that. And Carl Galarsi, a councilman, then decided to retire. And I got appointed by the Republican committee, county committee. I got appointed to the council, and then I had to run the next year.
Do you remember what year that was?
That was 70. No, that was almost 80, I believe. No,
Okay.
I got to remember.
Yeah.
78, I believe it was. I have to look up the numbers and so on.
Yeah.
So I was on the council 15 years, and then after that, I ran for mayor. I got a lot of long stories about how I became mayor and so on, which was crazy. As a matter of fact, when Bill, who was the mayor at the time, he just wasn't doing much, and I was getting upset with things. Nothing was happening. And I told Bill I'm going to run against him or drop out. And he told me, Tom, let me just finish this last 4 years, and then I'll let you run. I said, okay, Bill, no problem, because we were neighbors and we were
Yeah, we
friends.
live next door to each other.
Yeah, right. We were very good friends. And 4 years came, and then the next election comes up, and Bill comes to me. He says, "Oh, Tom, I decided I'm going to run again."
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, forget about it. I'm going to run." So
Yeah.
that's what happened. That's how I became mayor. So I was always protective of the fire department in every way I could, and help them out, and grow the building, and grow what they needed, and do whatever we could to help them, and so on. So that's how we wound up basically in New Jersey, and how my family's all up in Connecticut. Everybody's still up there, and my sisters. I have two sisters up there, and my mom was up there when she was alive,
Yeah.
and John was there until he retired, and he went to Arizona to retire with his firemen. But that's how we wound up in New Jersey, and you guys never really knew about Connecticut, just so to speak.
No, I mean, we're all of us were born in Jersey, and then you landed in Franklin Lakes, and it's been a very good home for us. And just my upbringing though was very much involved in the community and getting to know people because of who you were, and getting to see the different services. But you were fiercely protective, like we talked about Uncle John. You were also very protective of all of us, your family. You sat there and kind of, I don't know, your tone about maybe you did too much when you were younger in the fire department and then the town and so on. But I have to tell you, and I talk about it in my program a lot when I talk about us in my upbringing, was there's no resentment built in at all. I mean, you taught us work ethic, and you taught us commitment and sacrifice. And I think that all those things, you can't make every lacrosse game. You can't make every school play. You were running your own business as an entrepreneurial business owner, right?
Yes,
You're
absolutely.
building a business. You work 6 days a week, 7 days a week.
Right.
I remember in the house, we had the separate phone line, the landline that rang just for the company after hours. And you'd run down and pick it up, and it's the business line. And next thing you know, you got to go again. And then on top of that, you'd come home only to go to City Hall, or you'd go to the firehouse, right?
Right.
And it's those memories, though, Dad, that never ever did I once think that, you didn't put in time. I mean, you were such an awesome father, and you raised us right. And I think the thing was that you taught us is accountability. And I think that being as involved as you were, you created a framework for us growing up that was like, listen, you're accountable for your own actions. You work hard for what you want and need. And you provided for us. I mean, don't get me wrong. We grew up in a wonderful town, and you provided so much for us based on your own sweat equity and blood, sweat, and tears, right? Like, you provided so much for us, and sometimes we took that for granted.
Yeah,
and
no doubt. We worked hard. We worked hard to try and make it, and I tried to provide a life. But I think looking back, in a lot of ways, sometimes I wasn't always there, and I think put a lot of pressure on your mom to try and make things work right. She was always there for you guys, and always supportive of everything you guys did and everything. And I wasn't always there, and sometimes I think I look back and I have some regrets about that, as to why did I spend so much time in the council as being mayor. And why did I spend so much time going to the fire department? Why was I a Lions member of the Lions Club at the time? I did do some Boy Scouting or Cub Scouting, a Cub Pack leader, so hopefully gave some direction there. We used to go camping and things like that. So I'm hoping some of the stuff rubbed off of me, but I guess it must have, because I'm so proud of you guys, all three of you, and how you guys succeeded and have raised your families and everything else. And I'm so proud of your families, and it makes me so proud to see how great they are and how wonderful the kids are. Not kids anymore, young ladies and young men and so on. So I'm wondering how it all came about when I wasn't always there, when maybe I should have been there.
Well,
but
who's to say?
Who's exactly.
To say?
But I think what happened, what I always felt was that in politics and so on, and no matter what I did, I certainly wasn't going to do anything to embarrass my family.
Right.
And I tried to maintain that keel and keep an even keel and not to do anything that would embarrass the family or my name or any of us. And I think that came from you guys too, because I think you saw that and you recognized that somehow, and you never embarrassed me. I mean, there might have been some little trivial things that, a big party when we were away in
more than
Florida
one, sir.
or where
More
it
than
was.
one.
But you never
No.
got in the kind of trouble that some of the kids are getting into.
Oh,
and,
for sure.
And some of the things that are available to people and kids today and in the past days that could have led to more dangerous issues and more struggles in life, and we didn't see that with us.
We were
I'm very
raised,
happy about that.
We were raised with the right framework, and it's like you're going to be kids, and we were going to get into mischief and try things and do things and think we're going to get away with it. And the fun part is usually we didn't get away with it. You wrote the book, sir.
Yeah.
So all of the mischief. I mean, we could go down the road of storytelling, and I'm sure we could go jab for jab on stories, right?
I'm sure.
But but that was all part of it, and our name is important to us, and I think that's a lot of like what I do with this podcast too. Is like I put a lot of information out there, and I talk about myself, and I have to stand behind everything that I say.
Right.
And so you got to have this this transparency and authenticity behind your word. And there's no room for embellishment or anything that doesn't reflect you in a positive light. And yeah, that is certainly one thing that I've learned from you. For many, many years, you fought for so many people and so on. But I want to listen. This is a fire department podcast, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
like,
Exactly. Yeah.
But I love I kind of love the backstory because I didn't know a lot about you in the Connecticut days. I didn't know about, it's pretty cool that after all these years, you still remember a lot of the guys' names.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
And
quite
as
a few
kid,
more too.
You were a troublemaker in some regards. I mean, you used to get into mischief quite often.
Oh, we did. Yeah.
So did you find at Turner River at the time, were those guys like dialed in on you? Were they mentors to you, or did they kind of tutor you at all? Or?
Yeah, I think so. There was in the single days when we were single, we used to quite often go up to New York State because New York State was 18
to drink.
Yeah. And Connecticut was 21. So we'd go to Armonk or we'd go down to Yonkers or we go to different places that we knew of and so on. And how we got home sometimes I begin to wonder and question that. And in the fire service, I can recall one time I think I had a few too many beers and I fell asleep at the firehouse, the main firehouse, and there was a guy right next door, Al Golan. And Al was so rambunctious about being a driver. He was always up and out and in that truck and in that seat.
Right.
And nobody ever could beat him to the firehouse because he lived right next door. But that night, I was sleeping there, and the alarm woke me up. And I jumped in the truck, and there was somebody else with me, and I can't recall who it was. And the two of us got in the truck, and we drove up Long Ridge Road to Rock Rimmon Road, and it was a major house fire. And to this day, I'm not sure how we got there. It's nothing I'm bragging about, but, as a kid, I was probably, I had to be 19, I think, at the time. And maybe 20.
Yeah.
And got the truck there, got it in pump, and we're only two of us at the fire. And the house is fully in blaze. And we ran up to the front door, tried to kick the front door in to see if anybody was in the house, but the flames were overwhelming. And that's the last I remember of that fire. They took me off the truck. I don't know what they did with me, and I don't know where I was. But I'm not embellishing that, and I'm not saying that it's one of the crazier things that I had done in my life, but, it just worked out, and everything worked out. But, yeah, I had a lot of mentors at Turner River. There was guys from World War II, obviously, Henry Baker, Al. Al was such a strong guy. And
tough as nails, right?
Tough as nails. He was a Marine Corps guy. And boy, he showed me the way a lot of times about things and about life. And Henry Baker owned a water company, which is still in existence today up in Connecticut. And he was a great fireman. And then we had Don Spears. Don Spears had a gas station that he owned downtown Stamford. And he had this like 5-window coupe. I forget what it was, a Chevy or a Ford. And he put a siren on it. And from Stamford all the way up the Long Ridge, he would blow that siren and go through all the lights and everything else and come and make the calls and so on. He was always there. And he taught me so much, too. There were guys I can remember, how to straighten me out and how to do this. And, Tom, we don't do this and we don't do that. And they were great guys. They were down to earth, tough as nails, but big hearts. And they'd give you the shirt off their back and help you in any way. And that was a great thing about fire service is if anyone was down and out, there was always someone there to help pick you up and make things right and try to help you get back on the even keel. And that's, I think, one of the reasons that I love the fire service, because of all the memories that I have of great people who served without recognition in a lot of ways. Never got the pat on the back, or sometimes never told him he did a good job. And they always came through. They always were there and always willing to step up. And you see that in our service, our fire department, guys that want to do things and do things right. Mm-hmm. And so on.
So I got to think then, when you saw that parade go by, the 50-year parade, the anniversary parade, as you moved to New Jersey, right? Took a couple of years off from the firehouse. I'm sure it was
5 years. Yeah,
I'm sure there was a gap in your life. I mean, looking for that camaraderie again, especially new to a town you knew nothing about.
Right.
You didn't know anybody there. It's a good way to meet people.
Exactly.
And when you got there, did you find the same characters there that you had?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You have your clowns, and you have your good guys,
same
and
clowns,
you have the
different
bad
circus,
guys,
right?
and you have the doofus and the what do you want to call them? But you have them all, and that's the thing that sparked me. I was sitting there in the chair just watching them go by, and it was a pretty long parade because it was their anniversary. But I saw them walking by with a lot of they were proud. They were marching, and they were proud of what they represented, and it sparked the interest in me again, and that's why I got back into it. And now I still have some real good friends there, and so on. We've seen a lot of guys go through the firehouse. Young guys come in and go. We've had a lot of people through the firehouse, and you get to meet them all. And to me, it's very entertaining and very conducive to making friends and having friends and so on.
I in my program I put a slide. It's probably the third or fourth slide in the program. And it said held at arm's length, and it's a picture of a bunch of kids like sitting in the fire truck. And I talk about my upbringing in the fire service, and the firehouse for us, my Chris, Greg, and myself. Those are my two older brothers. I'm the youngest of three boys. All firemen. We all grew up in your footsteps of volunteer firehouse, right? But the held at arm's length is a slide that talks about the importance of the honor and character and integrity of the firehouse and what it should stand for. And what I talk about in that slide was my own upbringing in the firehouse. We weren't allowed to just go to the firehouse anytime we wanted. The firehouse, you were very protective of it, at least the way I see it. You were very protective of the volunteer firehouse, and that was your place. And that was your escape. It was your boys' club, if you will. That was your escape from work and from family. You had the firehouse. And Monday nights were training, and after training, you guys would play cards and have some spirits, and you'd play cards into the wee hours of the night, and you'd come home. The thing was, though, is that when I talk about this, and I talk about my thoughts of the volunteer firehouse when I was growing up, you were protective of it because of what it stood for. And I look at guys, I look at like Bruce Setter and Kevin Clays and all those guys that were there when I was a young kid growing up.
Right.
I looked at those guys as they were all 12 feet tall. I looked at them as like pillars, right? Like gods, if you will. And as a little kid, I would watch the relationship between you and these guys, and it was like laughter and camaraderie and fun and pranks. And then I never saw the serious stuff as a young kid, but I know now, knowing what I know, there was tons of serious stuff back then too, and you guys were all there for one another. But then as soon as that bell rang, you guys, it was all business.
Oh, yeah.
And
exactly.
I mean, and like all business.
Everything dropped and we went.
And what I'm getting at is like that to me created this absolute love for the fire service of what I envision it should be. We need to protect our firehouses and make sure that our children, the next generation growing up, comes into the firehouse with the utmost respect for it, right? It consumed you as a human being.
Yeah.
You know, it consumed. It's a big part of your life. Even today, it's a huge part of your life. And what I'm getting at is like, I worry about how we're raising our kids today to respect the firehouse. And I'm finding a lot of families, their children are not going into the fire service. You're not seeing a lot of legacy firefighters anymore where guys' kids are joining the volunteer firehouse. It's not as popular as it once was. And I worry about like the upbringing of our children in the firehouse, and we have to make sure that we protect the integrity of that so that when kids come, they have an understanding of respect of what goes on, what those fire trucks symbolize, what the hard work ethic symbolizes, that time away from home for their fathers or mothers that volunteer, what that time away actually means. That's important, and I don't want to lose track of that.
Yeah, that's very important. Absolutely. Yeah. But the kids are today coming out of college and things like that, they're just so consumed with their work, and you know, they're not getting married at the young ages and starting a family young anymore. They seem to be a lot older in their late 20s and maybe even to 30s before they think about settling down and so on. And you know, they're either traveling or working and having fun, and they don't think of the fire service, and that's concerning. And obviously, it's going to affect the fire department. It's not like it used to be. You know, my dad wasn't a fireman,
right?
And so it wasn't. I started it because I had some good friends who asked me to join a fire department, take a look at it, and see if it's for me, see if it's the type of thing I want to do. And obviously I fell in love with it, and I enjoyed it. And I'm just wondering today, you know, how are these younger kids going to come in, volunteer, do the work, show up on a Monday night, you know, do all the work that's required to become a fire two or an officer eventually in a volunteer fire department. It's so tough today. We don't see it. We just don't see it that much.
But we do see them. We do get them. But the thing is, right, my point of this, Dad, is that the opportunity is still there. It might not be as prevalent or in your face, but my point is the generation, the guys that are firemen today, are their children going to be firemen tomorrow? And that's a really interesting question, right? It's like, and so if not, why? Right? The fire service has been so good to you. It's been good to me. And that's why I was, you know, it was a no-brainer for me. I mean, I was in love with it from a little kid perspective, right? But like today, maybe our kids are not falling in love with it like we did because we're not educating them enough about it.
That could be,
you know?
Absolutely.
And that's where I think we have to protect. I mean, I remember when we were allowed to go to the firehouse, when you were like, hey, come with me to the firehouse, or hey, we're going to stop here.
Yeah.
It was a place that we were lucky to be at, and we enjoyed it. Today, kids run in and they run around the place like it's, you know, like they have free reign of them. Yeah,
Playland.
And I talk about that, and
Lego
I say
world,
we can't.
you know, whatever.
It's not a nursery school, and it's not a place. Families are absolutely welcome. Bring your families to the firehouse all day long. Yeah. I have no problem with your kids coming. I'll put them on a rig and take them on a call with us. I don't care, but at least educate them about what the place actually stands for and represents instead of just creating it as another thing. I think it's got to be, we have to talk about it in a much higher regard than I think we are. I think we've taken it all for granted, and then our generation, the next generation, is seeing that and saying, man, you know, their kids are just looking at it as something dad does instead of something it's an honor to serve.
Right.
You
right.
know?
That's true. Yeah, very
But
true.
growing up, I fell in love with it. I remember chasing fire trucks on my bicycle, Mr. Webb yelling at us all the time, getting in trouble, right? But we had a passion for it. And I want to ask you a couple things that stand out to me when I was young, right? One, the plane crash on Franklin Avenue.
Oh, yeah, right.
We were eating dinner.
We were at dinner at the house.
On Ackerman Street.
And it came
we lived
in
on
over
Ackerman
the
Street.
radio, right.
Yeah, Plectron went
Ackerman,
off.
right.
For an airplane crash.
Crash on Franklin Avenue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, which was only, 500 feet from our house, basically. So you take off and go.
Right.
And what are we doing? We're nagging at Mom. We got to go. We got to go look at this.
Yeah.
And I remember walking up to the corner and seeing that airplane.
down the
It was a
ground.
Cessna or whatever. It wasn't big.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen every day.
No, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing about fire service. Some things happen that it gets you motivated, get you going, and, you got to get involved and so on. Because you're a fireman or because you're in the fire service or your family's all fire or ambulance or whatever. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Do you remember Franklin Lake's building supply?
Yep.
So that was another fire that I remember as a kid walking up to watch. This was before, for everybody listening.
It was behind the building, right?
It was
in
the tower. It was that tower.
Right.
And I remember walking up as a kid, and there's fire coming out of like 3 out of 4 windows. And I remember at the time watching, going, that's my dad. And you were climbing out of one of the windows onto the roof ledge as the window literally like engulfed in flames. And I was like, that's my dad up there. That was the craziest thing. I'll never forget that. That was one of those instances that I was like so proud of you and the fire service and what it all looked like. It was this picturesque tower, blazing. The top of the tower was blazing away.
Yeah.
Now, the guy that owned the building supply was a fireman, right?
Yeah, Bill Langadone. Yeah, he was a fireman, absolutely.
And the building supply was like the old school Home Depot or Lowe's. It was
a hardware store.
One, right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Bill was an old Dutchman, and he was very involved. And he lived up on Sunset.
Yeah, right behind
behind us. Yeah, up on the end of cul-de-sac up there.
Yeah. Do you remember that fire?
I do, but I don't remember all the details of it.
Yeah, well,
that one doesn't. I remember the fire. I remember going to it, but I don't remember all the details. I think it was something to do with some rags that were somehow set on fire, or they had what do you call it? Some type of floor. What do you call that stuff that you use on
stain or
something like that? But the rags,
the oils, the linseed oil, things like that.
Right, they were in a pile and they caught on fire and set it all.
How many fires have we had like that? We've had so many fires like that over the course of time.
We have, yeah. And that one I remember going to that and so.
Do you have some? You've never really talked about like memorable fires in town. And I mean, I've been on the fire department now for 30 years, right? So, I mean, I've been on for over 30 years now. So, I know of my tenure there, right? A couple that stand out. But before I was there, do you have some memories of the old school riding back step?
Yeah. And the one fire I can remember very well was down at the end of I'm trying to think of the street. You can see it from High Mountain Road, but it actually is on the road behind it, which is
the fire on Pondbrook?
No, I think what's his name, the family that lived there. Well, whatever. The house was ablaze inside, and we crashed through the back window sliding door. And I can remember that, and it was so hot.
Yeah.
I mean, we were on the floor with a hose line, and it was ready to flash over. That fire, I can remember, was just about ready to flash over. We probably should not have been in there, but we had a line with us.
Yeah.
And we opened it up and cooled down the whole roof ceiling before this thing actually torched. But that was one I can remember that I said, this is going to flash over. I thought it was going to flash over on us, but fortunately we got it cooled down before it could. And
Yeah.
the other one was She's house on the corner of Franklin Avenue and what's the street right on the corner by where the Bluebird Inn was.
Oh, Circle Ave?
Circle.
The
Circle
frat
Ave.
house?
Yeah. That house there.
The frat house.
Yeah, exactly. And that was up in the chimney. They've had a fire in the fireplace, and it went up the chimney, and evidently it was a leak somewhere on the third floor. And I remember we had a ladder. We put a ladder up to the top window, knocked the window out, and stuck the hose in the attic and wetted it down, hopefully to knock down most of the fire until the guys could get inside and attack it from the inside.
Right.
Then we came down. That fire was a great save. I mean, we could have lost that house, but that was a great save, getting up there and getting that water initially on the fire. The other one was the fatal we had with a young lady that died in the fire.
Washington Street?
Yeah, Washington Street. I can recall that. And John Smith and another fellow went in, found her, and pulled her out. I was on the roof, and I had her there, but she was gone. So
Yeah.
those type of fires. And we had the accident down by the ball field that one time.
Yeah.
The little girl that got hit by a car. Of course, wasn't a fire. I remember a lot of brush fires. We used to lug the Indian tanks and try to put the fires out with Indian tanks.
When you joined, was Southside open yet?
Yes.
Southside opened in what, 74?
Yeah, right then. It was brand new. Yeah.
Brand new.
Yeah,
Okay.
brand new.
All right.
Yeah, it had opened. Right.
And then you guys you were running the old Seagrave engines, right? They were in the 60s.
Yeah.
And then was the 46 still?
Yeah, we still had that. That was there. Yeah, that was a tough truck to drive.
We
Yeah.
have it back. The bucket of rust, right? The one you didn't want back. Right?
Oh,
no,
yeah.
wait.
Oh, no,
Are you
that's
talking
the
about,
GI.
you're talking about the one.
The one that Steve has up at his
that's
farm.
right. 46.
now.
Okay,
Yeah,
that 46, not the GI.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
That thing, I mean, you had to shift that thing. That was a tough truck to drive to get it into gear and everything. But it did the job. And, we used to ride the back rails, the back platform when we first joined. And then sooner or later we cut that out.
Yeah.
And it just was really too dangerous to do something like that today.
Well, I remember as a
And
kid.
so on.
I
Yeah.
remember as a kid, like that siren would go off in town, your plectron would go off.
Yeah.
And I mean, that siren went for 12 long blasts. I mean, I remember that thing would go off for like 3 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then all the guys come tearing in their cars with the little the little teardrop on the roof, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You remember you have it in the basement, that little
Yeah.
Maltese cross
Right.
with the blue light
with the
in the
blue
middle?
light in the center.
You mounted it on your dash
Yeah,
or on your
right.
bumper, right?
Yeah, my front bumper. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That was cool.
You're going up the street with a little light flash. And
Right?
now I don't even use a light. I mean,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
never use a light, but I'm not active as I was at one time, and I sort of miss it. But I can understand. There's a lot of risk involved in being chief. The chief of the company, decided that, at 83 or 82, going on 83. Maybe you shouldn't be driving $1 million ladder truck down the road. So
I joke in my program when I talk about you, and I say, it's time for you to let the 65-year-old guys have a chance to drive. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right.
You got to let the younger guys drive.
Yeah, I know that. I miss it though. I
know you do.
Miss the obvious of at least feeling like I'm participating and doing something to help out somewhere, even though I don't hustle hose. And every time I go to a drill, and if I try to pick up a hose, hey, Tom, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. They're being protective of me, which I can understand, because, how many 83-year-old guys are jumping on the back of a fire truck or jumping in a fire truck and going down the road and so on. There's far and few between. And I can understand and I can respect their decision that, there's a lot of liability involved, and you just never know. And so I did my thing, and I enjoy every minute of it. And it's part of me that was sort of torn away, and I sort of miss it. But I understand. You got to give other guys a chance, and that's what I always said too. It's we had some of the guys before me, the generation before me. They would say, "Well, that's not the way we do it." I always used to say to them and say, you got to give the guys a chance. They're new. This is what they want to do. Give them a chance. They want to make change. Let them work it out for themselves. If they got good ideas, it's going to work for us. You can't stay with the old all the time. You got to move on and progress and make changes where changes are necessary. And I always thought that the next guy coming up the line in an officer position, if he has an idea, let him go with it and see what happens. And, he can either fail or he can make it work. And, you got to give him a chance. You can't live in the past. You got to move forward and so on. So that's always something I've always looked at. And I used to get upset with the older generation before me, and, they're sort of set in their ways. You can't do it that way. That's not the way we do it. I'm saying give it a chance. Let it try and let them work it out. So, yeah, it's been great.
Well, it's been a long tenure in the fire service, right? And I think about, the fire service always has its ups and downs. And, there's
always will.
Yeah, and always will, right? It's like anything. But
sure.
But I love that it's like a lifestyle for us, right? It kind of consumes you. It's one of those things that
it does.
It's not a hobby, right? A volunteer fire service is not a hobby. It's not any of that. It actually is a lifestyle. It consumes you. It eats you up. You want to do your very best at it. Your friends, the people you surround yourself with, typically are in the fire service. You look at who you communicate with, what you read, what you look at. All those things has a lot to do with it, and it's become, for many of us, it's become who we are. And there's a tremendous honor, I think, that goes with it, and I think that's why I'm so protective of it.
Yeah,
I'm very, and I know you're protective of it too.
Very much so. Yeah,
I think we have to be.
Absolutely. But I'm so proud of seeing some of the young guys that are actually making it a career now for themselves. And the number of guys out of our company that are making it a career is outstanding. I mean, to me, it's phenomenal. I mean, I hate to see we lose them, but you're going to anyhow, because if they didn't do that, they'd do something else. But then to be so proud of them, to be a paid fireman in Patterson and Englewood and Teaneck and
New York City,
Jersey City, New York City.
The list goes on and on.
It goes on, and they got their background starting in Franklin Lakes.
Yeah,
and they fell in love with it, and now it's not only consumed them; it's their career, it's their livelihood. Their family's now a part of it. Their wives and all their young kids are all a part of it. And so it goes on, and that to me is phenomenal. I think that's so great to see. And even some of the guys that went down, we had one guy go to Virginia to start his career in Virginia and then come back here and find a job in New Jersey, which is absolutely phenomenal, and give them so much credit for that. And so proud of them that these guys are doing things like that and making it their career. They fell in love not only with the fire service, but because it's a great career, great camaraderie. You meet a great group of people who are always going to be there and have your back all the time. And you can't miss on being a fireman. I mean, that to me it's not, it's not a millionaire career, but it's certainly a great career to have and a great livelihood. But the friendship you make and all the things you learn in life on how to help people is so rewarding, and that's why they should be so proud of themselves, being able to serve and help people. And to me, that's a great thing to do, and I'm very proud of them.
Well, it's cool, right? Because when you watch so many guys come through our system at a young age, 16 years old, the junior program, they join. and then they find their way with it. So many of them didn't know much about the fire service. Not all of them were legacy firefighters that came from families that had firefighters before them.
Oh, absolutely.
And
yeah.
so a lot of them found their way. They come through our system. They realize it's something that they're passionate about, and next thing you know, they make it a career. And in fact, it's a real honor for all of us. I say it all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
And for guys like you and I that have remained, you know, it's fun to watch, and it truly is a feather in our cap for the amount of guys that come out of our system to do it somewhere. It's great.
Yeah, exactly.
It represents. I think it represents our department in a very good light, and I think that's a real good way to judge the firemanship and the culture of an organization, is to see who wants to do that and falling in love with it and then taking it and making it their career.
Right.
I think it speaks volumes.
Oh, it does. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You can't be more proud of those guys. And it sets their way of life. It sets the way things are for them and their livelihood and their families. And it's such a great career. They could have gone other ways, but I think they saw the benefits of being a fireman and how much they can help other people and do good things in life for themselves and be proud of. So, yeah,
well, listen,
no doubt.
You know, you were talking about it. You were talking about it before. You were saying how you're starting to slow down on the active side. You're still coming to calls when you can and partaking in different ways. I'd still love to see you jump on a truck every once in a while. You don't have to be afraid to do that, sir.
Yeah, I know
you might
that.
not be chauffeuring all the time anymore, but you know, it would be nice to see you on the fireground for sure. We still love to have you there, just so you know. You know, you're still. But I want to say this, right? For very many years, right? We had. Franklin Lakes has a very deep tradition in those that are the main drivers of our companies, and it tends to be the most senior active guy typically gets the seat.
Right.
And I remember growing up a man by the name of Rudy Mans.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
Rudy was my chauffeur for 20 years,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly, yeah.
And then he ended up aging out and slowed down on the active side and has since passed. But he was instrumental in so many things within our department. And you want to talk about a guy that was stubborn and wouldn't change his mind. I mean, he was the epitome of that, right?
Absolutely.
But he drew a hard line in the sand, and you knew where you stood with him.
Oh yeah,
and
exactly.
That was some of the stuff about the old timers that I truly appreciated. Was, you know, I was that young kid. Rudy would always call me Scooby Doo because he could never remember my name, so he called me Scooby Doo, right? And it was always because I was getting in trouble, or I was pushing buttons, or I was testing the waters, you know.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I think there's so much to that process, and I really enjoyed the older guys. You know, when I was a kid in the firehouse, especially 18, 19, 20 years old, early on in my fire service career. And then I watch as a guy like yourself then starts to become more senior in the department. And then Rudy slowed down, and then you started picking up your driving time, and then you started driving more and more.
Right.
And you go from driving a second due to the first due.
Right.
Right. And now that you've slowed down, Jim Webb has slowed down. Now Chet's taking over.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of one of those rites of passage, if you will.
Yep.
But when you drove, I want to get to this part. When you drove, get the hell out of the way, man. Tommy Donch's first due, no matter what.
Yeah. Nobody on the truck would tell me that. You know, did I think I was going fast? Absolutely not. I wanted to get there, obviously. Not that I was in a race to try and beat anybody.
Yes, you were. You're trying to beat me from across town. Hands down.
Yeah. But, you know, I said to the guys on the truck, I said, why don't you tell me something? You know, Chet would always say, red light, red light. He would always sit in the front. Red light. I said, Chet, I can see it. I know what it is. I know I'm not going to go flying through a red light.
Right.
I'm going to stop. I stopped at every intersection with a light.
Yeah.
And, but I guess I somehow got a reputation. I didn't realize I had that reputation that, you know, the pedal to the metal, I guess it was.
100%. Yes, you did. But I want to say this, right?
Tried to be safe.
Oh, of course.
Make sure the guys got there.
Oh, of course. Of course. But the thing was, right, and what was fun about it, when I look back and I think about it, was the thing you were was unapologetic about getting there, getting into position, and getting stuff done. And for many, many years, you were driving our rear mount, and you would put that ladder truck anywhere and everywhere it needed to be, and you weren't afraid to do so.
Right.
And we have guys that are afraid to put it in a driveway or on a lawn or back it into an alleyway.
Right. Yeah.
And you never ever were afraid to do that.
No, you had to get close in order to use it. If you didn't get close, you weren't going to use it.
Yeah.
So you had to find a way to get in there. And if it meant backing up and driving down a driveway backwards or one thing or another, we tried to do it.
Yeah,
and so on.
I remember the fire on Sandia in the middle of the blizzard. That house that was sailing on arrival, it was snowing 3 inches an hour.
Yeah, the long lay we had.
Yeah, the long lay.
Yeah, the long lay.
But I remember you were positioned right outside the driveway with I think you were driving the engine at the time. I don't think it was the truck.
Yeah, it was
an
the
engine.
Right.
And I remember Wyckoff's tower ladder took the driveway right behind you.
Right. Yeah.
Do you know where I'm going with this story?
I think I do. Yeah.
And
how hot it got?
Oh, yeah.
Keep going.
The garage doors fail.
Right.
And I remember the chauffeur of Wyckoff's truck screaming at you, going, "Tom, I need water." And you go, "Hey, Bill, I guess you shouldn't have parked so close." It was one of those moments that I'll never forget. I was standing there. I think I was assistant chief at the time.
Yeah, you might have been.
And I'll never forget that.
Oh,
but
my God. I remember that. They were so damn close to the fire. Holy smoke.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember you just calmly saying that to them, and then here comes your water. You gave them water, and the fire got knocked down. But
fortunately,
it's moments like that, right? And that's what I love. It's the storytelling of the fire service.
There was the one over at the townhouses, the new golf course over there. Remember when that townhouse went up?
Yeah, I remember that. I was driving the first due engine.
The bucket was in the fire.
Yeah.
And nobody was tending to it.
Yeah, I have video of it.
Yeah,
yeah. And the guys had to scamper down the ridge line to get away as that roof started collapsing in.
Right.
And the bucket was still there, and it got moved hastily. Might have been smoking a little bit as it moved away.
Yes, it did. Yes.
But that fire failed too. Lightweight construction and brand new construction.
Yeah, exactly.
Lightweight construction.
Yeah, right.
We had a total failure of the structural members of the roof.
Right.
And that thing was off to the races before you knew it.
Yeah. Yeah, we put the ladder up on the left side, and Keith, I think, was up there trying to open up the roof on the left side. We didn't have as much fire there as they did, the bucket. And I was trying to yell over to those guys. And I don't think anybody heard me, obviously, with all the noise and the action that was going on. But nobody was on the bucket at the time, and I guess somebody finally realized that they're cooking it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
All those things happen, but
yeah,
great memories.
You know, all these years, right? Small town. We went to a lot of fires over the years.
Yeah.
You know, if you think about it, between our own first due and then we do a lot of mutual aid work.
Mutual aid, right. Yeah.
And I remember so many different fires. I remember one fire you and I went to. It was me, you, and a new kid. It was during fire convention weekend, and we took the loaner ladder truck down to Waldwick for a house fire in hoarding conditions. Do you remember that one? Right across the same block as the 7-Eleven, Franklin Ave.
Oh,
and,
right.
Or I guess that's Wyckoff Ave there and Crescent. And it was the hoarder house. It was the middle of the night. You and I didn't even know how to start the ladder truck. We had the loaner from the county.
Right, from the county.
We didn't know where the battery switch was. Do you remember? We're running in circles.
Oh, my
trying
God,
to figure out how to start it. And then it ended up being me and you and one other guy.
I don't remember who the other guy was.
It was Anthony, no longer on our department. He's, he's in a
the
mutual
guy
aid
lives
town
right
now.
there on Franklin Ave.
He did, yeah.
On the left side.
Yeah.
Big kid. He's now an Allendale fireman.
Yeah, he's an Allendale fireman. The three of us went down there for that fire, and it was hilarious. And terrible fire. It was a fire in a crawl space, hoarder conditions. There was only a little alleyway throughout the entire house, and we had to empty out through the front windows. I mean, tons of debris just to get to the seat of the fire, opening up the floors. A snotty fire. But I remember that was one of those moments. You and I was riding the front seat. You were driving, and we couldn't even start the damn thing. We didn't even know how to get it down there. But we got there. we got the job done. Yeah. I think about all the stories, and I think firefighting is so important, storytelling. And when I talk about the older guys in the firehouse, I think that is their one main job. I think that their one main job after all these years is to sit and tell stories so that the younger kids and the next generation can hear them.
Yeah.
And I think that that's important. But sometimes you guys need a reminder to share them, but we also need to remind the young kids they need to open up their ears and listen. Because storytelling is a part of training. Storytelling is a part of learning, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Hearing the names of the guys. I mean, I see your wheels spinning right now of the stories, right?
Yeah.
And I think back, and that's what I'm trying to do is trying to, get your mind going here about some of the stories that you have and the fun that you've had and the friends that you've made along the way. It's been a hell of a journey, no?
Absolutely, no doubt about it. Yeah, when you mentioned Rudy's name, we had in Turner River, I mentioned the guy's name, Al Golan.
Yeah.
And he was the Rudy.
Yeah.
He was the Rudy of Turner River. And he was the main night driver, because during the day I said we had paid drivers. He always drove that truck all the time. It was a Mack. I remember it was a Mack, and it was a pumper truck. We never had a big ladder truck or anything there. And he was set in his ways, and, and he turned out to be president of the company for many, many years. And but, I come to Franklin Lakes, and there's Al Golan.
Yeah, right.
But it's Rudy Mann.
Right.
And Rudy lives right across the street. Al lived right next door to the firehouse. And two same ideologies and everything else, and mindsets and so on. It's quite interesting how you have the same type of people in one company, and then in your own company now you have the same type of people. It's so interesting, and so cool to remember these guys for their contributions and what they have done and so on. So
everybody, I came to realize it took me a while to understand that you can't hold people to the same expectation you have for yourself,
right?
Because you're often disappointed, right? And I know, like when I was chief and assistant chief, I lived there. That was my life, right? Very similar to you as mayor and council, right? Like it consumed us. And you always want to do your best. And I had a hard time for when I was younger. And I always say I was a terrible officer and a terrible chief because I was too young. I had a different mindset back then. I wasn't. I didn't have the clarity that I have today. I didn't have all the experience I have today, or the or the time in to be able to formulate sound opinions. I had to be the biggest voice in the room. Always had to have the last say. Right. It was always that type of thing. And I realized over time that you get better as time goes on. I think you do.
Yeah,
right?
but see what you've been exposed to lately. I mean, all the different chiefs and the different assistant chiefs, the different has-beens and the different officers here and there, the different companies, the way everybody does everything. You've been exposed to more than probably every single fireman I know around. That that type of exposure has to show you so much and tell you so much about the service and the fire service.
It does.
And what it can do for you and things like that. It's incredible. And doing this thing here, National Fire Radio, and promoting the camaraderie, brotherhood, and everything else that you do, the new things that are coming up by these companies that are offering, new types of products and innovations on trucks and how things are stored and this and that. If you were chief now, which you probably should be, and you probably should run for chief.
You're out of your mind.
You would take it in a totally different light than when you were chief, because, like you said, you were young. It was your turn. You were checking order.
Right.
And you wanted to do it your way. This is my way. I'm the chief. Now it's my turn. So, that's understood. And
I enjoyed it.
Does that?
I enjoyed it for sure. I just look back on it and I think, would I love the opportunity to do it again? Sure. Do I have the time? No. I look at the commitment today that it takes for these guys, and that is part of the issue, right?
Oh yeah,
is we're asking more of less, right? We have less and less people, and we're asking more and more from them, and so we have to be really conscious of what we ask of our people and how much time we're asking of them, and we got to be sure we don't waste their time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But I think we still need to find a way to make the firehouse a priority. And I think that that's a big part of it, is that the firehouse has become not a high priority for many people anymore. We found, life provides a lot of opportunities today more than ever before. But I think a big part of that conversation is finding ways to still prioritize the firehouse. And for you, it's a priority. For me, it's a priority. But I can tell you, for me, it's not the priority it once was, because I am spread so thin on my time, right?
Yeah, right.
And so you find yourself juggling and balancing more than ever before. And so it does become the challenge. And, we have older guys taking on positions that, a lot of times they would be able to slow down and not have to step up, right? Our older guys typically should be allowed to slow down, and yet we're asking more of our senior guys than ever before. It's a tough equation.
It is. But you're doing a lot more for fire service now than if you were just in our firehouse and just being an officer and so on. I think you're doing a hell of a lot more by what you're doing and what you're promoting and what you're selling and what you're trying to push that message out there. I think that resonates with a lot of firemen, and that's why you get a lot of the recognition that you're getting, because you're doing good for the fire service, and
that means the
you're
world
keeping
coming
it
from
alive.
You.
Yeah,
that means the world coming from you. And it was for many, many years I worked with you in the family business, and I had a passion for that too. It was a way to be connected with you and to enjoy our time together growing up and so on. But I think, the start of National Fire Radio for me was a chance to do my own thing.
Yeah, exactly.
For so long I worked for a family business where, I helped provide for my mom and dad and my two brothers. And, a lot of the hard work that went into it was to make sure that we could survive and the business could thrive. And
fortunately we did.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
And it provided a very good upbringing for me and my family and so on. So I'm forever grateful for that. But I also realized, too, that I was missing something, and that's where National Fire Radio truly came from. It was a passion to build out my own thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And I always had this.
You always had that drive,
Well,
to do something and to initiate your own type of thing.
Yeah, but I always loved the fire service.
Yeah,
right? And that's because of you. You were instrumental in introducing us to the fire service. I mean, shit, I remember being a young kid and it was an honor to be asked on Monday nights to be live victims for you guys.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so we would, mom would drive us over in the old station wagon, right. When drill started.
Yeah.
And we would go wherever the drill was. And Chris, Greg, and I would be live victims with the web kids. And you guys would make us hide in the dark as a 7-year-old kid. I was terrified.
Search and rescue.
Absolutely terrified. Hiding in the dark and then hearing you guys with your old survivors crawling through trying to find us. I was terrified as a little kid, but it was still the biggest treat in the world to be able to be a part of that. And I don't forget those things,
I'll be darned.
And that's a big part of that is a big part of why I do what I do today. It was because my upbringing was so incredibly special for me, and I'm grateful for it. I'm truly grateful.
Well, we're thankful for you and what you're doing. That's for sure. We're very thankful. Absolutely.
So what are you going to be doing this thing till you're 120 or what?
I hope so. I guess so. Yeah, I'll still be wearing the fire department shirts. And,
I know you will.
And going to the firehouse, sitting down, talking with the guys, and doing what I got to do, and helping out where I can help out. And
I talk about Jack Willer often.
Right.
And Jack was a longtime fireman in our town who passed away at 99 years old.
Almost 100.
And he was right up until the very end. He was visiting with us, and he would come down to the firehouse. And I talk about how he took a long time away from the firehouse to take care of his own family. His wife was ill, and then after she had passed, he had an open invitation to come back and join us and be a part of the family and an active part, and he did. And he came back later in life.
Well, it filled a void in his life.
100%.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. The guys, just being there with the guys, he always felt blessed. He always said that, I'm blessed that I have this, and I have this to fall back on, because he really, once he lost his wife and he was alone, he had a big void in his life. And I can always remember him telling me, Tom, I'm so blessed not only that I'm living to 99, but now I have this friendship, and
Yeah.
he could relate with a 16-year-old
Yes.
as well as he could with an 80-year-old.
Yes.
And he was never that type of fireman that would be argumentative or try and create an issue or stir the pot the wrong way or whatever. He always tried to make everybody feel comfortable around him, and he was very successful doing that. But the fire department filled a big, big hole in his heart, and he was so grateful for that. And that's part of the fire service, is one of the benefits that you get that you don't realize you're getting sometimes. You're there and you don't realize that you have this void, and they're filling it in for you. So it makes your life more comfortable and everything. So it's great.
I look at what he did for us.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
when you look at the balance of things, right? He did as much for us as we did for him.
Yeah.
And you look at that relationship where all the young guys admired him and talked to him as if he was as young and equal as all of us.
Right.
And
Exactly.
and the stories that he could share and so on, and the history that he could share with us was invaluable. And right up to the end, he was such an important part of us. And I know we're an important part for him, and he's missed every day. But
sure.
But I think that's the beauty, like you said, that's the beauty of the fire service,
Right.
and what
exactly.
it stands for.
Yeah.
There's so much to that, and I just every organization should have an open door for their older people, and they should never be dismissed or put on the back burner, and they should always be a part of the fold, and I think that's incredibly important for them, but also for us as an institution, for sure. So what's next for you, big guy?
What's next?
Are you doing playing a lot of golf now?
Tomorrow we have Activities Unlimited, and then Thursday I have golf, and I'm going up to the cabin to do a
This
little
weekend, right?
Yeah, this weekend.
It's Father's Day week. It's Father's Day weekend coming up.
Yeah, I know
sir.
it is. Yep.
What do you want? You want anything?
No.
What do you
not
want?
a thing. I don't need a thing.
Can
or
I
want
give you a
thing.
National Fire Radio T-shirt?
I'm good. Yeah.
He doesn't even want a T-shirt.
We'll
Nice.
take. I got T-shirts, but
That's
I'll take
awesome.
a T-shirt.
I'm kidding. I'm absolutely kidding.
Last one you got me was out in Allentown.
Yeah, that was quite a while ago. We gotta get you another one. I
That
think.
was Kutztown.
Yeah. Well,
You got me a T-shirt from the Kutztown Fire and Rescue.
Oh, I'm sure. I
Your
have
buddies out there.
I have it's one of so many departments that have been so kind and welcoming. But I have so many. I have thousands of T-shirts now. Thousands. It's crazy how many T-shirts I have.
Oh my gosh.
But I want to say this, right? Thank you for joining.
Oh, don't thank me.
Well, I want to because this is important to me, and this has been a long time coming. You've been nothing but supportive of me and the choices that I've made in life, and you are an incredible grandfather and an awesome dad. My children adore you, and
how can you not love them? I mean, they are so precious.
They're awesome.
So precious.
I agree with you.
Yes.
I agree.
Absolutely.
But this has been a real treat for me, and I didn't know where we were going to go with this and how deep or involved we were going to get, and I got to have you back because there weren't enough stories of your childhood to bring up, and the stories that I love hearing, and maybe we'll get you to share them.
Maybe we shouldn't put them out on the air.
Well, maybe we should. I mean, the living legacy that you are. We'll get those stories out there. But I just want to say thank you for everything that you've done for me, and it's a real treat and a real honor to say that I'm your son, and I love you and I appreciate you. And thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And what can I say? I'm just so proud of my son here.
Oh God,
so proud.
All right, we better stop before it gets any weirder.
Get mushy.
Dad, thank you. I love you, and I appreciate you doing this. Thank you. And
think you got enough intent?
We're still going. We're still recording right now. So if you keep talking, they're going to hear what you're going to say. So let me say this. I'm going to sign off by saying what I always say at the end of every single episode, and that's take this conversation, take it back to the firehouse, and talk about it. Because when you're talking about the job, you're making the job better. But in this case, I got to sit down with my dad for an hour and a half tonight and hear some stories, reminisce about some stories of my childhood and the upbringing that I had, and our mutual love for the fire service. And I know not everybody has their fathers these days, but if you do, have a conversation and learn a little bit more about who they are and what they went through growing up and so on. I value the relationship I have with my father every single day, my mother as well. They are a big part of my life. And but even talking to them as often as I do and seeing them as often as I do, you don't get a chance to really sit down like this.
Yeah.
And so to be able to do this has been a real treat. So anyway, thank you for tuning in. Episode 400 with Tom Donch, the man, the myth, the legend, also known as Tommy the Torch. Maybe we'll get into that at the next one. And until then, guys, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you at the next one. Jeremy, National Fire Radio.
National Fire Radio.